What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kick Your Knowledge. Today we're going to be discussing Saturn in the second house. And before we get into that, I just wanted to, you know, acknowledge everything that's going on in the world. Um, so much happened last week, but definitely RIP to Prince, the icon. Um, Beyonce's new video, Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, and of course the presidential elections. It's just a very interesting time. So all of you who watch my channel, you're on your own spiritual journeys. This is a time I would say to really focus right now. Like look at the things that are going on around you in a discriminating way. That's my advice. There's a lot going on, all right, and match that up with these retrogrades that we got going on. Okay, so what happens when Saturn, the planet of restriction, limitation, organization, discipline, represents older people, the government, comes into the second house of wealth, of speaking, of family. Okay, so best way to look at the second house is that it's representing your family. It's representing where your wealth in life comes from, how you can achieve wealth, and then the planets here show in what way you're going to receive that wealth. So when Saturn comes into the second house, um, as far as the family life goes, this is someone who feels very much like an outsider in their family. They may have had a rough childhood or a overlooked childhood. There's many different variations of how Saturn goes in the second house. So of course we're going to pay attention to sign. All right, sign is key, and of course aspects. But just speaking on sign, say we have Saturn in the second in Gemini. You may have someone who feels they may have felt like the parent for their siblings, or they may have been overlooked. They may have been overlooked because of their siblings, or felt overlooked. All right. So people with Saturn in the second house, they feel like this estrangement from their family, this distance, and what that does is that it drives some people to break away early. So say we have someone with Saturn in Sagittarius. This is someone who, goes to college and doesn't move back in after. They just learn how to become self-sufficient and break away from their family. So it's also it also drives the person to look at money or family. If it's the opposite effect, if you are close to the family, say uh, the alignment is good for your second house, you may feel very the look at family as security, or you'll go to wealth or material items as your security. And what this does, I've seen it many times, especially if Saturn is like within one of the top two planets with the highest degrees in your chart, not including the outer planets. I would say a major lesson for you is to become financially disciplined. And with those people, what I've seen is that they are usually um, big spenders. Okay, I remember I had a friend of mine ask me a question like, "Do you think that Saturn in the second house will create somebody who is cheap or stingy?" And I'm like, surprisingly, no. It may be the opposite. They may be undisciplined as far as their finances go. So maybe it's, squaring Venus. Maybe Saturn is squaring Venus, okay? Or Saturn's in a sign like Leo, and the person uh, clings to the materialism a little bit more, okay? Now, as far as work goes, what I've seen with Saturn in the second house is that Saturn gets people these these mechanical jobs, okay? Like these really tough, rugged jobs. That's why I said sign is going to be key, all right? Because in certain signs, Saturn is going to push you towards the things the sign represents. But what I've seen is like a lot of construction workers with Earth, Saturn and Earth here in the second house. I've seen, of course, politicians, lots of lineage with Saturn in the second house. So, because the next thing with Saturn here is that it creates some type of mentor in your family or just overall. The person is fond or sees eye to eye with older people, all right, and it could represent um, having maybe a parent, an aunt, or uncle who really, pick something, whether it be sports, music, and teaches you it. Speaking of that, Prince, he has Saturn in the second house, and I think it's square Mars. And Prince's father was a musician, and he taught him early on. And Prince said by the time he was 12, he knew that this music thing is what he wanted to do. And of course, he played multiple instruments. So Saturn here definitely gets somebody a mentor. So as far as one's wealth goes, right? Like I said, you'll have people here who, if they're too close to the family and use family as a security, it could represent someone who doesn't establish independence till later in life. Okay, so here you want to become financially disciplined and independent in your own wealth. All right. Next thing here is that when it comes on to speaking, okay, with the second house representing the throat and things like that. Say Saturn maybe is here with Venus or something, or maybe Mercury. What it's gonna do is make the person a pretty straightforward communicator. All right, like of course you're gonna see where Mercury is and all those things, but overall these people have a certain authority when they speak, and others tend to listen to them. So Saturn here is I would say very very much um, a powerful speaker. So politics is something that's awesome for this placement. And then another thing career wise is that if Mercury, like I said, Mercury is well placed, there can be easy easy mathematical ability, the ability to tend to one's finances or others' finances very, very easily. So you can get an accountant, a banker, lots of things. But overall, with this placement, like I said, you want to be disciplined. Be disciplined with your money. If you're that big spender, as time goes on, you should get better. You should get better and things like that. All right. So, guys, this was my interpretation of Saturn in the second house. If you haven't done so, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Hit me up. Let me know what else you want to talk about. Until next time, peace.